Hey guys, welcome back to the Red Circle Podcast. My name is Vanessa. This is Ed. Ed Beck.
I will be here the whole show.
Yeah, we are your favorite conspiracy theorists.
Yeah. The fun-filled excitement of your future demise.
Oh my. What an intro. Yes.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about The Return of the Gods.
Yes.
The book by Jonathan Cahn. And I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. He's a writer.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a Messianic Jew. He was brought up Jewish, not like super Jewish, but Orthodox Jew, and then he converted to Christianity.
Okay.
And he had like a couple near-death experiences. He like said that he was going to turn to be a Christian, and he's like, "Well, when I'm 40, I'll do it."
Because he wanted to party and have fun.
Yeah, he wanted to party, have fun, And then he had like two near-death experiences. He got hit by a train, and then he like crashed his car or something. And
Train.
yeah, like
That's
a train.
intense.
Like his literal car got hit by a train, and somehow he survived.
Oh my.
And he was like, "Okay, God,
Yeah, I'm yours.
You got it.
Let's do this.
You got it, Toyota."
Mm.
Right. This reminds me of that commercial.
What commercial?
He's like, the commercial goes, "You want it, you got it,
Oh,
Toyota."
Toyota.
And there's a movie that there's a guy that I think it's City Slickers,
Okay.
and his dad keeps
Saying
his wife's father keeps repeating it as he's driving him to the doctor's office. So he's like, "You got it, Toyota." And he just kept repeating it over and over and over while he was taking him to the hospital. And he's like, "Kill me now." So, I think it was that. I know it's the same actor. But in The Return of the Gods, it's... No, so let me talk a little bit about his other books. So he has like The Harbinger 2. He's got the Mystery of the Shemitah. He's got like another 6 books.
Mm-hmm.
And then this book came out, and this book's very different. This book is not as futuristic, like future prophecy type book, or a warning is kind of what he does a lot of. Like The Harbinger is a warning, literally. And this book is more a history book. And 95% of the book is studying ancient Babylon and their ancient gods.
Okay.
And how they intertwined with society as a whole. And so the premise of the book, and I'm not finished with it, I'm on like chapter 44. It's a big book. Okay. And but the premise of the book is that America was a Christian nation, and we turned away from God, right, in the 60s. It's funny because I've always said that. Mm-hmm. I've always said that. And then they gave a foothold to the enemy, and then the enemy has worked his way through to where the chaos that we live in now. Yeah. Right? Because like in the 60s, like a bunch of these hippies out there in the middle of nowhere. But now it's like we can't even fathom, like this. Just making this video is going to be dangerous.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
Like we can get canceled?
Yeah, canceled, or like people can come after us. Like they're very malicious when it comes to these things.
These things and this information.
Yeah. So just give you a little background, is there's a when you look at Jesus came to the world, and he was coming into a pagan world, a world controlled by the other gods, or by the other fallen angels or demons, whichever one you want to equate it to. And everybody would worship these gods and appease them for growth or for fertility or whatever, right? They wanted, and so they would do these things to try and appease the gods, right? You've heard this term before, right? You have to appease the gods. And they would do all these different things to try and appease the gods, and we'll get into some of it. But, and when Jesus came, he was like this foreign enemy. He was like Neo, right? Invading the Matrix. And then when he gave the apostles and the different disciples the ability to cast out demons,
Yeah.
it was like a eradication of all these ancient gods.
Okay.
Like there's literally a point in the book where like the second one is Ishtar, and she wrote in her thing through one of her medians, right? Like if you think of like the movie 300,
Okay.
remember how they would go
Love
up to
it.
the gods
Yes.
and she's like dancing and all nude and she's freaking psycho,
Yeah.
right? And she's like, and she would say the prophecy, right, of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's like what was going on, right? So one of those major gods was the god Ishtar.
Okay.
It's Ishtar.
Okay.
Okay, and in one of her writings, after all this had happened, she wrote and she's like, I have no more power. I have no place here. I'm leaving, right? And that's literally what Christianity did. And it, against all odds, right? They weren't like hugely funded like they are today. Like you have the Roman church and all this stuff.
Yeah.
They weren't mainstream. You know, people thought, like people killed Christians in the early church, not because they had a different thought, because they thought they were bad for society. They thought they were going to destroy the ability to succeed and for their children to eat and stuff like this, because they thought the gods were giving them these things.
And they would be angry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like something happened, right?
Yeah.
So that's the premise, is like this is invasion, and when they got to America, they just eradicated all of the demons, and America was like protected. It was like a shield. And one of the major verses that he uses is when Jesus talks about the man that was possessed, and then he was free from the possession, right? And then he received God, and then he expelled God, and then the other demons came back with 7 more, even more wicked, right? Finding the house cleansed, swept, in good order, and the place of that generation, because everybody says man, but it's more generation, was worse than the beginning. So that's the premise of this book.
Okay.
Is that's what's happening to America. Is that we have expelled God, which everybody probably could agree, you know, and now we're having the return of these gods, and they're gaining more and more power, and they're giving more and more influence in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a couple of them. Well, there's only really 3 in this book. Obviously, there's probably more, but these are the 3 that he chooses to focus on. So the number 1 is Baal. And Baal is called the possessor. So he's like the main first god that comes back. And you see a lot of Baal stuff in the world today.
It's coming up a lot, like with Balenciaga
and
all of that
stuff. Is that a girl? Is that a guy?
No, Balenciaga is a fashion. It's a clothing company. And they're huge. They're high end. Kanye really helped make. They were already a thing, but Kanye and Kim, mainly Kanye, really pushed Balenciaga everything. And they've been in the media recently because they had a photo shoot go viral.
And it was like with kids. And
yes,
stuff.
Kids were in like it's a BDSM. Is that the phrase? With I don't know, bondage.
Okay.
The kids weren't in bondage, but their teddy bears were in bondage, and then there was paperwork on a desk in the background. And if you zoomed in, it was something like a Supreme Court ruling that had to do with child pornography.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they hashtag a lot of weird things too.
They hashtag Baal.
They hashtag Baal. They hashtag Molech.
Oh wow.
They hashtag a lot of creepy weird things, but everyone was just saying oh it's art. It's art. It's just art. And then even the art directors and the people involved in the company are known to do witchcraft and to do things to kids.
Ew.
Specifically kids. That's what's coming out a lot about Balenciaga. And then there was a one photo shoot where they had, if you really look at the props, they're on purpose. And so one of the props was like caution tape. And at first it looked like it was like a roll of caution tape. It looked like it said Balenciaga, but it said ball.
Oh, it's a Baal. Baal.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very blatant. Like if you look at it, you're like, oh shit, like this is real. They believe in this stuff, but then you're like, no, I mean, it's a high-end brand. You can get weird shoes and cool jackets there, you know? But it's very, very expensive. Everybody wears it. All the celebrities. It's a big thing.
Ew. Ew.
Yeah. Ew.
So Baal is like the possessor. Let me just, I pulled up a thing just because I didn't want to miss anything. So Baal represents the nations turning away from God. His strategy is to separate the nation from the word and the ways of God. In America, he did this by removing prayer from schools and by causing God's ways to become alien to the nation's children. He could cause alienation from America from God. Okay, so that's his goal.
Wow.
Okay. And it's funny, they always go after the children. They always go after, because you can change the next generation easier than you can change us.
So easy.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and Baal is like throughout the Bible. You know what I mean? Like the worship of Baal. Now, the second one is probably the most important out of, well, I can't say that, but let's get to the third one first.
Okay.
And you already said his name, and it's Molech. So the third one is Molech.
Okay.
And Molech is the most mysterious member of the Dark Trinity. Is known as Molech. His name makes several appearances in scriptures. For example, when King Solomon fell away from God, he built a high place, altar, and sanctuaries for this foreign god. One of them was Molech, and he was the god associated with sacrificing human beings, especially children, by their parents. And the abomination is a sign of the nation that has turned entirely against the way of God and become lost to him. Okay, so
that's intense.
In the book, he talks about like the ancient times and how many different people were like the different groups, countries that were killing their children to this god, right, Molech. And so there's a couple different ways that they would do it. One they would have like a brass idol, and they would light a huge fire underneath it so that the idol would become like glowy red, because it's copper. And then the parents would bring their children in and then put it in the belly of the god, and they would like burn him to death, burn the baby to death.
That is.
And then the screeching and the sounds would be throughout the temple.
Oh my God.
So if you people don't realize,
that's brutal.
People don't realize how brutal and crazy the world was before Christ. Like it was insane. It was insane. It was insane. And many a times the Jewish people turned, like we just read about Solomon. The Jewish people would turn to the gods, right?
Yeah.
And then God would bring them back, So many times we've seen this. We haven't seen this really in America, right? This is like a slow fade, right? But if you think of how many babies have been aborted, I think it's something like 1 million a year.
Yes. Yes.
And how many, it's the mothers that's deciding it, and she's deciding to, murder her child, right? And it's funny because the way that they worded it in the olden times with Molech is that if you did it, you would get financial gain, right? And you can hear it when you hear women talking about it. It's just like, I don't want the burden of having to pay for this kid and take care of him and the financial struggle. I'm already struggling or whatever, right? I want to go finish college or whatever, right? So you can hear that it's a financial decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The rarity is like something bad happened, like they were raped or whatever, it's like less than 1% of all abortions. Because you're talking millions of millions of babies.
Yeah.
And you think about how long ago that started, right? How long ago? And you could add up all of those babies. And it's literally sacrificing them to Molech. That's what this book makes the claim, right?
I believe it. So with abortions, it's really, really interesting. They sell off the baby parts.
That's what they used to do in olden times.
Yeah. That's what they're doing now.
It was like collectible stuff for these babies.
So they sell off the baby parts. They make money off of the baby parts. They make money off of the abortion itself. I was on TikTok. I think I had told you this a while back. I was just scrolling, and there was this yoga girl. And I like yoga. You know, I'm like, oh, I'll watch her. So I just like stopped scrolling. And she had this altar in the background. And she was explaining how you can have an abortion, ask for the fetal parts, because apparently you can. And she had fetal parts from her abortion in a jar, and she put it on her altar. And she was explaining, there was like over like 1.2 million views or something crazy like that. All of the comments were great. They were like supportive comments.
What?
Yes. And she said, put it on your altar and like thank the baby for its part in your life. And you can like have a special ceremony for your dead baby. And she was like, it was, you couldn't tell what it was because it was torn up, you know what I mean? But it was just like a glass mason jar with the baby bits.
Oh, you could see it through it? It was see-through? Oh my God.
That's on TikTok. And like 8-year-olds, 13-year-olds, like that's disgusting. How can you even leave with baby parts? What? So, I mean, as you're saying all those things, I'm thinking of that. Like, it's happening.
Wow. Yeah. So it was like you were giving it to the god as a sacrifice for, fertility and financial gain and stuff like this. Okay. And it's gross. Like, there's nothing more precious than a baby.
Nothing more precious.
Nothing more precious. Animals, like all of that stuff. And we'll do a video on just abortion one day.
Yeah.
But this is the destroyer, right? And he destroys nations.
And Balenciaga is hashtagging Molech in some of the random things of their content. I'm going to go back and see. I wonder if they even have that, because they have lots of kid pictures. They're an adult brand, and they could have kid stuff. I don't know. Every time I've ever looked, it's always like jackets and hats and shoes and things. But why would you hashtag Molech in a clothing brand? Like, all of that's really
sick,
blatant.
Yeah. I know I saw something too that Adidas was in there. Adidas had a bag in one of their things. They did like a crossover
collab. Yes.
Yeah. So then I was like, dang it.
Now I can't wear Adidas.
And then like Adidas, like I stopped wearing Nikes. Now I can't wear Adidas. So I'm going to have to try and find something. So if you know another brand that I could wear and not feel like I'm supporting the worst things in the world. Gosh. Okay. Now the big one that I wanted to talk about is Ishtar. Okay. So Ishtar is her defined as her another name. Like, she has a bunch of different names, but is the enchantress. And she's also known as Miss Baal.
Oh.
Okay. And the spirit is referred to in the book of Judges. The two gods, Baal and Ashtoreth or Ishtar, are linked together. The enchantress god represents the goddess of sexuality. She started the sexual revolution. The return of Ishtar is the modern world's weakened marriage. Weakened marriage. Sex became a god to be pursued. America became filled with pornography. Images that were once forbidden or taboo began to fill the movie screen.
Wow.
Right. So there's another side to Ishtar, and it's the power and the agenda, and another agenda. She was the sorceress or the transformer, a god who changes a man into a woman and a woman into a man.
Whoa.
By altering human desire, identity, and nature itself. The transformation takes the sexual revolution to a deeper level and transforms America and the West civilization.
Whoa. We're watching that happen.
Literally.
When was this book written? A while
It's
ago?
recent.
Recent? Okay.
Yeah, it's a recent book. He'd been working on it for a while.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can pull up details.
I am in shock.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
These are ancient gods, and we're seeing it.
2022 it came out. Right? So it's very new, it's very recent. And there's crazy connections. So there's this gay bar. Well, first off, he makes the connection that New York is the gateway to America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I can see that.
Yeah, like you had like what's that, Ellis Island, right? And everybody coming over here through Ellis Island. And so there's a gay bar. There was a gay bar. I don't know if it's still there. And it was called Stonewall.
Yes.
You've heard of it?
Yeah, the thing that happened like in the 70s or something. Yeah.
Yeah, 1969.
69, okay.
The police, because the police would raid these gay bars because, homosexuality was outlawed.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, like.
Yeah.
You were talking in the 60s and 70s, like gay marriage was outlawed.
Yeah.
Even what's the other thing is anal. What's it called? What's the other word for anal sex? There's a name for it.
Oh, sodomy.
Sodomy was outlawed.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So obviously gays was outlawed. Being gay was outlawed.
Yeah.
Okay. So in 1969, the goddess to the modern culture made her return in a way no other event had. On June of 1969, the police raided the gay bar on Greenwich in New York City. 200 people were at the bar. Police began loading those people and at the raid into the van. During one of the arrests, something took hold of the crowd, who began to taunt the police officers and hurling objects at them. It became so dangerous that the police had to retreat inside of the bar, fearing for their lives. And the crowd even tried to charge the bar to get the officers until help arrived. The Stonewall riots continued for days. What happened that night went beyond the human realm. Canes point to some important signs or symbols. A bar down from that bar was called the Lions Bar. Now that's not what he said. So I'm reading CBN's news, like a take on it. Mm-hmm. But the bar, another bar opened like a week or two after that, and it was called the Lion's Head. The same sign that in the ancient times represented the power of the goddess as she entered war. Also on the night, despite the fighting, several began to perform a dance, the dance of Ishtar. Okay, so a lot of things, and I'll just kind of briefly go overview it. So the lion is represented to Tammuz or Tar, I forget his name, but it's with a T. And that was like her lover.
Oh.
Okay. And every time that the lovers would separate, they would have a parade. And that same parade that happened in ancient Babylon is on the same month that we have Gay Pride Parade.
June.
Which symbolized from this, it's symbolic of this thing that happened.
Wow.
So her lover's symbol was the lion, right? And she was kind of like androgynous, so she would have sex with both.
Okay.
And one thing that they would do is they would dance around her temple, And in the dancing around her temple, they would mutilate their genitals in during this ritual.
Whoa.
Yeah, and then they would dance with their knives, like dancing around. Like, it's crazy.
I feel like you'd have to be possessed to do that.
You have to be, yeah. Duh.
To like want to mutilate
Like
your
me.
body like that. Oh my god.
But we, in a sense, are doing the same thing.
Yeah, with transgender.
We're celebrating people that are mutilating their bodies.
Whoa.
Right?
Whoa.
It's a type and shadow, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that he makes the connection with. And then Stonewall was I think it was the place that was like the name of the temple that she had.
Stop.
Yes. Yeah, like this thing I'm telling you, it's a conspiracy
Oh my
theory.
gosh.
Yeah. So
I know these are not coincidences, but do you think that the humans knew, like when they named it the
No.
bar Stonewall?
No idea.
Or that lion's head
No
thing,
idea.
right?
No idea.
This is intense.
Yeah, no idea. And that's how most of his books are kind of written. Is like he makes these connections that nobody has ever made before. And that's what's hard about reading some of his books, because it's just too much.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But this is just it's too coincidental.
No, yeah, it's happening. We're
to
watching
not
it.
be
Yeah.
To not be obvious. So
oh my gosh.
And then everybody that started parades in San Francisco, in California, in different places, all called this same thing, like based on the guy's name that had the bar, right? I forget his name, Carl something. And so
the Stonewall bar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it was all symbolic of this thing that happened.
Yes.
And then one thing that Ishtar said is she was like, she breaks down gates. And she was a warrior girl. So that was the other thing that she does. So first she makes them sexually promiscuous. And then she turns them gay, so they have sex with each other. Wow. And then she turns them into to mutilate themselves, right? So this is like the progression. Wow. And you see the progression happening here, right? And the more that she takes control, the more of these things happen, right? And we're like at the end phase of what she's doing. Whoa. And so, what was I going to say?
You're talking about her being a warrior.
Oh, yeah. So that was the other thing. It's like she like in the beginning parts, the first thing that she would do is she would feminize men, make them put makeup on and put dresses on and dance, which was not male. Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of these people that talk about like homosexuality and alternative sexuality, they always bring up, well, they did it in the past. Yeah, but this was the past before all the demons were expelled from society. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they always bring up like, you know, ancient Rome, ancient Babylon.
Yeah, like
and all
humans
these different...
have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. And it's, but that's before we became Christian. Before the world kind of converted. And especially the Western world, right? And so the one thing that she started doing is she started making the males female, right? Put makeup on. Women, they sent the women into the workforce. The women started going into the armies and becoming warriors. And it's funny because every movie I watch now, the girl is beating up all the guys, right? And that's like, no, no girl can beat up a bunch of guys. Like, I don't care how much the Black Widow has studied.
That's exactly who I was imagining right now, Black Widow.
Yeah, she's like splitting and she's like a little tiny girl. Like, no. Sorry, girl.
Yeah,
like, I don't
not
care.
Real life.
I don't care how much kung fu you know. Like, I just get my hands on you. You're not gonna get away. And, you know, like, not saying that I would ever hurt a girl, but I'm just saying, like in reality, like she beats up 60 Russian operatives, you know, on a plane, you know. Yeah. And they all die and nobody cares, right? And then she flies down and saves the half android chick. Right? You're like, no, I don't think that would happen. So I think it's an agenda. I think it's an agenda. I think it's a spiritual agenda to convert. And then the other thing is that her name, the word pornography or porn is is derived from, I think it's called porne. Porne is the actual word that was originally used, and it's all based around her teachings and stuff. Yeah, her teachings, and that's where all pornography came from.
When you were talking about how, oh gosh, how did you word it? The god, like people worship sex.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. It's like all about sexual gratification, what makes them happy in this moment. Mm-hmm. And wow.
Mm-hmm. So if you think about it this way, imagine America was covered with this protection. Mm-hmm. The protection was God. Okay. That we were a Christian nation. Mm-hmm. And we thrived based on these things. Yeah. And then then our government started taking things out, right? And they started just throwing them out. They started taking prayer out of schools. They started taking the Bible out of schools. Like kids used to be taught the Bible in schools mm-hmm. in America. And I'm not saying, everybody always brings up the separation of church and state, mm-hmm. right? Which is not even in the Constitution. No. It's an obscure letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to a bishop or something. Mm-hmm. I think he was Baptist or Lutheran or something like that. And he tried to convince Thomas Jefferson to make the country this denomination. Yeah. And he's like, no, we have to have a separation of church and state. Yeah. But it's very clear that America was a Christian nation.
Yeah, our money has "In God We Trust."
Yeah, and it was like you had like Thomas Jefferson's prayer mm-hmm. in the beginning of it, and he dedicated the country to it. And he's even prophetically said that if America ever turns away from God, that it will be taken over. Yeah. And there's a lot of things about George Washington that he did, specifically towards God. So I won't get into all that, but so the Supreme Court. So this is a part about the Supreme Court, and this is still in her thing. So Cahn's content is no accident that Pride Month is in June.
No, 1,000,000%.
And the goddess entrance to the inauguration for her resurrected movement at Stonewall took place at the exact time ornated by Mesopotamia calendar of the ancient mystery. The observations celebrated and pride parades were held around the end of June, which was typically within a week or days from the summer solstice, the time of pagan celebration. Ashton from Stonewall opened an ancient door. There are three landmark cases in the United States Supreme Court which opened other doors. First one is the legalization of homosexuality, which happened in the summer in the month of June. Second, overturning the defense of marriage took place in June 26. And third, overturning of marriage, which legalized same-sex marriage across America, took place towards the end of June. So it seems like it said that again. Overturn the defense of marriage. Okay, so the second one was over, like the name of marriage. Yeah. And then gave that, okay?
And all of that's happening in June.
In June. All in June. And then he goes on to talk about the rainbow, which I don't think I've gotten to in the book. So on the night that the marriage was struck down, the sign of the goddess, the rainbow, lit up the Empire State Building. The waters of the Niagara Falls and the house of that governs America, the White House, the power of metamorphosis belonged to Esther, where she could transform a man into a woman and a woman into a man. She changed our nation's priorities from values and desires. What the culture once rejected, it would now accept, and what it once accepted, it would now reject. So, it's funny that the rainbow also connected to Esther, which I haven't gotten there yet.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I haven't gotten there yet. Yeah, in the book. So, and I'm not here to, like bash people and their sexual whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let me, and we kind of went over this already in the other video, but the connections are crazy. It's crazy. And we didn't even get into like a tenth of the connections.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of them in the book. But the one that really struck me was the males becoming, the females becoming male-like, and then the males becoming female-like. Like we see now males putting makeup on, doing their eyelashes, eyeliner, right? Dressing very feminine, right? With all these colors. Like most males will be like me, and it's just a very simple color palette.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most males, we don't have the mindset to fight against other males just being wimpy. Like, go do what you want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just don't ask me to agree with it, pay for it.
Yeah.
Or teach my kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think we've gotten past that, unfortunately. And I'm not saying I'm going to go attack, and I'm not saying for anybody to go attack somebody for their sexual preference. No. I just think that the American people, if we're going to save our country, we have to start standing up for truth.
Yeah.
And we can't be ashamed if it hurts people's feelings. Jesus was not ashamed when he went into the temple and threw over the money changers and threw over the people and says, my house will be a house of prayer, right? Now we see pastors and preachers in the Methodist Church, and I forget what the other one, Presbyterian, I think, and they're allowing homosexual preachers and
there's
teachers.
Trans preachers.
Yeah.
And there's this one guy, he's all over the social media stuff, and the things that he's preaching are not God. They're not, like, he's not just talking about like trans and things. Like, clearly what he's preaching to his congregation is like bad stuff. It's really, really like opposite. But they're all pretending that they're Christians, but what he's teaching is wrong. Not just the trans stuff, but like other things that he's teaching. It's like a sheep. What is it? A wolf
in sheep's clothing.
That's how I feel when I see him. Is that he's trying to portray this like openness and like loving, but like the words that he's using are really backwards.
It's very nervous. It makes me very nervous because I can see it as a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I'm going to tell you the other side that's coming out. So because this is rising in power, I feel like God is rising up other people with power. Right? Like there's a Kim Clement prophecy about this. And I think that's what's happening.
Okay.
And most of these people, and maybe I feel like myself included on this pod, might be a voice for this thing. And hey, you know what? Like, if God wants to use me this way, like, okay, I'm not a perfect Christian.
Yeah.
I sin. I have bad thoughts. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. Like, duh. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't say that it's not a sin, and I wouldn't say that I'm trying to fight against it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My sinful nature is the thing that I fight.
Yeah.
Right? So the problem with sin is that you have to recognize it for what it is. And the whole world is trying to manipulate me, the movies, the TV shows, manipulate me, manipulate my wife, manipulate my kids, manipulate my country into accepting things as if they are not a sin. And they are a sin.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a difference between me saying that, like I'll give you an example. Like, I can tell you if, like, one day I walk into and I see you at a restaurant and you're with some other dude, and I would be like, I probably wouldn't say it right there in the middle, or maybe I would.
I feel like you would.
Yeah. And I'd be like, girl, who the hell is this guy? And why are you here at this restaurant with this dude? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it may be just, you know, hey, this is my cousin or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you were committing adultery, you know, us Christians would call each other out the same way, vice versa, right? You'd be like, Saffron,
girl,
you know what I just saw? You would start getting your little head thing going on.
I have pictures, I have video. Boop, here you go.
I dropped my phone there with the speaker on so you could hear it. You know what I mean? I got a full audio of what was being said.
Here is the evidence, honey. I'm here now in the bushes watching him.
Yeah. I went and bought binoculars. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So that's adultery, right? And then you also have the other thing is if like you saw me start using drugs, you would say, hey, you know what, Edward, like you can't be doing this stuff, right? Or let's say gossip. Gossip's kind of the church sin, right? That's like the number one church sin. And man, we fight the gossip sin nature, right? we like to talk. So but you don't want, like, if anybody would call us out in it, we'd be like, yeah, you're right. You know, we probably shouldn't be talking about these things, right? And we wouldn't be offended and mad if somebody said, you know what, you shouldn't be talking about these things. But for whatever reason, right now, the church has this fear of speaking against alternative sexuality. It's never had this fear before.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I'm literally meeting with one of my pastors to talk about it. And I want to give him, you know, the truth, and I want him to stand for truth. And I don't care if it hurts people's feelings. Like Jesus hurt people's feelings when he went in the temple. You know, like he literally made a rope, like a whip, that he was whipping people with to kick them out of
the church,
of the temple. You know what I mean? And these people, like, they got their own business, they got it all set up. You know, they got there early. You know, and he was like, nope,
get out.
Right?
So with homosexuality, I think I'm realizing things with all of our conversations on this podcast. And like, I have a lot of homosexual people in my life, friends, family members, like, and I love them.
Yeah.
You know, I hired trans people at my restaurant. Like, I don't have any ill will or hard feelings towards these people. One of the things I'm realizing is the way that they talk about it, the way that society talks about it, is this is who I am.
Yes, it's an identity. And that was what she said, right?
Yes,
she said identity.
Yes, this is part of their identity. And in my heart, I don't want anybody to feel bad. I don't want anybody to feel left out. I don't want anybody to be, I'm always like I like underdogs. Like if I'm in a room like at Zumba, because it can be cliquey. You know, if you've ever been to a women's workout class, it's cliquey. And I will go to the girl that no one's talking to. And I will introduce her to more people. That's who I am. I want everybody to feel welcome. And when you're told that this is who they were born as, you know, you can't touch that. Like, that's who you are. Like, God made you with your brown hair. God made you to be homosexual. But it's a sin, and no, he didn't. You know what I mean? Like, I think as somebody who grew up in the church and like half of my church friends ended up being gay.
Jeez.
And, you know, those are the people that I know still to this day, type of thing. So I'm learning more. I'm realizing things. I still love them. I would never, like, I don't even think I could have that conversation and say, hey, this is sin. You know what I mean? But I love them with my whole soul. I would jump in front of a bullet for them. So, like, it's hard.
It goes back to the thing is, like, so I'll tell you this one. The Bible says that if you spare the rod, you hate your child. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't say you don't like them. It doesn't say that you, you know, it says you hate them. And you're like, that's kind of strong words, right? And I think what it means is because it's not easy to discipline your kids.
It hurts. It makes me sad.
I don't like to discipline. Yeah. I don't like give my kids a spanking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you do it because you sacrifice your own needs for their needs.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Is if you truly believe that they can become A, free from it, right? B, that it's better for them to live, right? That they can live a better life. And, you know, like this concept that what the Bible says is true, right? And even though it makes us live this really specific life, at the end, we believe it's better for us.
It is.
You
And
know?
with everything else, like with gluttony, with sexual sin, you can see how it makes your life better to live the way God wants you to. If you overeat, your body's going to be weak. Your body's going to get fat. Your body's going to get sick. You know, if you are promiscuous, you're going to get disease. You're going to get pregnant. You're going to all these things. Yeah, I can see that.
And let me tell you this too, is that at the end, all these women are like mutilated, lesbian, promiscuous, working, sacrificing their own babies, right?
Yeah.
And do you like if you really look at that, would you be like, yeah, you know what, they're happier?
No. See, and that's the thing. The two things. What did you say right now? You said, you were talking about their lifestyle.
Yeah, they're back in the workforce.
Back in the workforce, and the thing before that. I forget.
So that they go back in the workforce. They go in the army, right? They sacrifice their kids. They are like lesbian, homosexual, promiscuous, and they also like they have to like they become the male in the relationship, right? It's like a changing of roles.
Yeah.
And how many women do I know that are like, I don't need no man, I can take care of myself, right?
Everybody. Yeah.
And you're like, okay. You're like, and everybody wonders why women are all depressed. And I'm not saying that, like, you know, women go in the kitchen and make me a sandwich. I like sandwiches, but you know, I'm saying maybe we shouldn't throw these things out so flippantly. Throw out roles that we've had for years.
Yeah, for centuries.
To throw these roles out for years just because of a whim.
Yeah.
Just because it feels cool and hip and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend is more along the lines of a return. Ironically, a returning of the gods, like a return to God. You know, and a return to traditional family values, a return to traditional family roles. And I promise you, you know, and it's funny, it's so counterculture. Like, how did that become counterculture? Yeah. But it's so counterculture right now that even me, when I was growing up, I had the different viewpoint because I had like the single mom and the alpha mom who was always like doing stuff and starting businesses. You know, her and my dad were not married, and then my dad was very feminine because not like he wasn't like gay or anything, but he was very much like dependent on his women because he was brought up by a woman, right? So he didn't know what masculinity was. You know, and I'm having these conversations with him as I've learned to understand the differences.
Yeah.
Is that there's something amazing when a woman can trust that her man will take care of stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's a peace, a tranquility, a flourishing that happens once she can rest in the protection, in the guardian, in the umbrella of her man's masculinity. Yeah. And I think that the women have lost this. They don't even know what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like when I go places now or I'll talk to women, they look at me like I'm a crazy person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, they think that what they're getting is not it. You know what I mean? It is a lie sown to them by the devil.
Yeah, like me, I can be very alpha. I am extroverted, and I've always been entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to have businesses and sell them specifically. Like that's what I've always, ever since I was little, that's what I wanted to do. And I met Jacob very young. I was still in high school. You know, we got married. And I've always been very alpha.
Mm-hmm.
And once we had kids and I had mental health issues with the postpartum,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things really made me have to step back and not do that role that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's very alpha too, but he would just let me be because I'm like, doing all the things.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels so good to like rest and to like allow him to do his thing, because I trust that he's going to do all the right things, that he has me and his family as his number one priority, and I don't have to worry about everything now. I was worrying about everything, not worrying, but like I had my hand in everything.
You were carrying weight that you were not designed to carry.
And I was taking it off his shoulders. I'm like, this is my weight. I'm going to carry this weight. But why?
I am woman, hear me roar.
Yeah. But why? And allowing him, like, he's like, I'll take it back if you want. And then I'm like, take it.
I don't want this.
I don't want. Why do I even have it on my back? And he's
this
like,
is horrible.
You took it.
This is horrible.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, we know. We carry it. Maybe if I carry it, you'll appreciate me.
Yeah.
The number one thing that all guys complain to me about, because I counsel a lot with guys, is they have no respect.
They feel like their wife doesn't respect them?
Yes. All of my friends that are husbands, I don't know really any that their wives respect them. They feel like they are not needed, that they are not wanted, and they are not appreciated. All men.
That's huge.
Yeah. And then so these men, because they can't provide for what their women want, right? Because what the women want is mixed up. Right? It's mixed up. The roles are mixed up. Literally, the enchantress Ishtar has mixed up their brain, right? This is how I see it.
And through society.
Yeah.
Through the things that we're watching on TV, through our music, through all of that. It has made this mixed up world.
Have you ever seen that there's a video of a track race and they put male and females together? Have you seen it?
I've seen some. I don't know if it's exactly this one.
I think it's like a 4x2, which is like a 800-meter race, and then each person's running 200 yards or meters, and but there's one girl on each team, right? And one group, they said, "Oh, we're gonna leave our girl at the end," right? So I think it was like, a 4x4 or 4x2.
And you always want your strongest person at the last.
They call it the anchor.
The anchor, yeah.
Right? And it was like, that team was like 200 yards in front of everybody.
Killing it, yeah.
You know, she was just like, because all the guys went first.
Yeah.
And the other team had like the girl go second, you know, or third. And then when it got to the last one, this girl's like, yards away. She's so far ahead. You know what I mean? Nobody thinks that she's going to lose, right? Yeah. And the guy it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, guys are better, you know, whatever. Like, dude, there's a lot of things that girls are way better at. You know what I mean? Like I always use this analogy. If we have little girls, right? And imagine we're going to leave our little girls at a daycare. And we walk in the daycare and it's full of nothing but guys. Are you going to leave your kid there? No, hell no.
Hell to the no.
Yeah, you're going to get Medea on this, right?
Yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. And it's like, no, because we know, even though we're lying to ourselves, that there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between the male and the female. And there's different things that women are good at and men are good at, right? Now, I'm not saying man can't do the dishes, even though I hate doing the dishes. I'm not saying that women can't cut the yard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love cutting the yard.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's okay.
I'd rather cut the yard than do the dishes.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are things that I think men are built differently to produce.
We're built different.
And this is and I'll tell you, this is, and I'll finish it with this. And this is one of the biggest insights that I've ever had about male, female, and in marriage. Okay. So, and I've told you this before, but I'll tell it to the group. So you have to act surprised.
Show me.
Okay. So what was the first thing that God gave Adam? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can say it if you know
it. He gave Adam responsibility.
Mm-mm.
The garden.
The garden.
The garden.
So the garden. So the first thing he gave Adam once he created Adam was he put them. So Adam was not created in the garden. He was created in the wilderness, in the outback, in who knows where. And then he takes Adam and he places him in the garden. The garden symbolizes God's continual presence. Mm-hmm. This is where God was at. Okay? So the first thing that man needs is God's presence. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the first thing that we need, right? The next thing that God gave Adam before he gave God Eve was he gave them a job. He gave him responsibility. He gave him a calling.
To name all the animals.
Yeah, to name all the animals, control them, right? If you name them, you're in control over them. You know what I mean? And to put the world in order, right? So he gave him dominion and authority over the whole world. Okay? So the second thing that he gave Adam was a calling, an authority, a thing to do, a thing to manage, a thing to produce, a thing to do all these things, right? To cultivate. The third thing he gave Adam was Eve. Okay? Now, Eve is translated into like a helpmate, right? And what I always ask people is, what is she supposed to help with?
I know that he gave Eve to him because he was lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think Eve has a role. I'm not saying Eve has no role. Mm-hmm. Eve has a huge role. What is she supposed to help with? Is she supposed to help with the calling that God gave Adam? Mm-hmm. She is, the way I look at it is the woman is built like with all these, like this utility belt, like from Batman. Mm-hmm. She's got all these gadgets and cool things and things that guys don't have, right? These abilities. And she can see things, sense things that guys just don't, right? Mm-hmm. And like when my wife says something like, I don't like that guy. If I don't listen, it usually ends up bad.
Yeah.
If I do listen, it ends up better.
Yeah.
Right? And so she just has these things, right? And if I utilize her utility belt in the calling of God, then my life is a lot more, it makes a lot more sense. Okay? So think about it this way as well. She's also an incubator, a multiplier. So God works in multiplication and division. He doesn't work in adding and subtracting. Okay? So he multiplies, right? Some 30, some 60, some 100-fold, right? God's math is multiplication. He doesn't have time to do addition, right? He's like,
no.
He's like doing mad calculus, right?
Yeah.
So think about it this way. Say you're dating Jacob. Okay. You're single, right? And you're working at Babo's, right?
Adventure Zone.
Oh, Adventure Zone.
That's where the fun is.
Okay. Adventure Zone. Okay.
Where the fun is.
So, and you guys get serious, right?
Yeah.
And then he says, okay, before we go any further, I'm going to tell you my 30, 40-year plan and what God has given me. God has called me to do these things. And if you meet a man of calling, a man that understands what he's supposed to do in the world, let me ask you, would you think, as a woman, would you think that would be attractive?
Oh, so attractive. I would love that. And then my next thought is like where my place is in that and how I can help.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's a natural state.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like something where the girl doesn't have a place. Like you read Proverbs 31. Girls have a place in all of these things.
Yeah.
But you want to interweave your wife's skills into your thing, right? And that's where she will be at peace, because A, she's still under your protection as the man. You're still providing for, but together you can multiply what your vision is supposed to be.
Yeah, and you're growing together, you're learning together. It's all together, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that relationship works so much better. Everyone that I've seen where the woman has bought into the man's vision has been a million times more successful marriage.
Yeah.
If you can, and I'm not saying that I have this done.
Yeah.
I learned this after the fact that I got married, and that's what most people do. Most guys just, hey, I gotta first find Eve.
Yeah.
And then she's like,
then we're gonna figure it out.
She's like asking you, well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, that's like the number one question women ask. Yeah. It's like, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
And the guy's like, I don't know. I'm just making money. You know what
I
mean? I want to buy me I want to get a man cave to get away from your pressure of trying to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you don't give her the vision to buy into, she's going to use that utility belt against you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a kid that hasn't had the level of discipline and he's in leadership, he or she's in leadership, he's going to use the things that he has against you rather than in an orderly way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we have this utility belt and we want to use it. We're going to be using it. So put it to good use. How does a man find his vision? Because I don't feel like most men have a vision.
No, 95% of men don't have vision. So it's an easy question. What's before the vision?
Before the vision is God.
God's presence. Yeah. You find your calling and your ability, your unique thing that you're called to do on this earth by being in God's presence. You cannot find that unless you're in God's presence. You cannot, this world cannot tell you what that is.
The world can't tell you. Everyone's searching the world for answers.
And it's not here.
Excuse me. Wow.
It's not here. It's not earthly. Only one that knows how a thing is supposed to work is the one that made it.
And we can talk to him and ask him.
Yes, and everybody's terrified to do this.
Yeah, and people don't listen.
Yeah.
A lot of times we're asking and talking and not really listening.
So you go in there and you spend time with him and you say, this is a simple prayer. It's like, who do you see that I am? And he will tell you, the Bible says that he says things that are not as though they were. So he sees who you can be or who you called to be. The richest place on this earth is the cemetery, because it's full of people that had amazing gifts that let them die with them, had amazing skills, songs that should have been written, books that should have been written, songs that should have been sung, right? And things that should have been invented. And don't get your calling twisted with what you do for a living. It's not necessarily that.
I think people do that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily
that's the only thing
that.
I was imagining this whole time, but you're right. Because what you do for a living is how you make money. But on your, your spare time, you're volunteering at church, you're doing whatever else you're doing. What you do for money is not who you are.
One of the best movie parts, and it will encapsulate this in a movie. And I really don't like Disney anymore, but it's a Disney movie.
Okay.
So in The Lion King, you have Simba, and he's lost. He doesn't know who he is, right? And then he meets the damsel. He meets his Eve. And they wrestle, and he knows she likes him. And he knows he loves her.
Yeah.
Right? But she's frustrated because he hasn't came into his calling. And she's like, who are you? What happened to you?
Yeah.
And then she runs away from him.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the same thing why most men's wives are running away from them. Because they don't have that fire. They don't have that thing that that makes them get up in the morning. They've lost that. They lost their identity, ironically, back to Ishtar.
Yeah.
And then he's frustrated, he's lonely, he's depressed, and he goes out and he's like, he meets some monkey, right? And the monkey's like, you don't even know who you are, right? And he hits him on the head with the stick, right? And then he just goes out to like the field, and then he meets his father. And the number one thing that his father tells him is, remember who you are. He's like, you are my son. Right? And I feel the spirit on me right now. He's like, you were not made to just live and eat and be merry. Right? Hakuna Matata.
Yeah.
You were not made for this.
Yeah.
You were made for a purpose.
Yeah.
For a calling. For something great. Right? Nobody is made to just eat crap, pay taxes, and die. Yeah. That's not what we're made to do. Yeah. And most men are scared of that. Because they do. You know what the biggest fear of all men is?
Tell us.
It's in the book Wild at Heart, which is one of my favorite books, other than the Bible. That's cheating. The Bible's cheating. And the Bible is a collection of books. So you can't say it's one book.
Yeah, that's true.
But in Wild at Heart, he makes the claim that the greatest fear of all men is that they don't believe they have what it takes. They come to the mountain of their calling, and they see how big it is, and they run away like Jonah. Right? They run away from this mountain, you know, and they say, I do not have what it takes. It's like Moses when God's telling him in the burning bush, and he's like, I don't even know how to talk. I don't even know how to do this thing. I don't even know, you know, I was raised an Egyptian, right? And because God will build and give you the things that you need if you step out in faith. You know what I mean? Like, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying. Yeah. But that's what men need to do. Yeah. Is they need to go and find out what God says. Yeah. And you see it all throughout Scripture. The guy's going to God, and he's like, and God's like, okay, you got to do this. And he's like, you really think I can do this? Nobody feels adequate to do what God has called them to do. Yeah. Right? Very few of people in Scripture, like, you know, feel like they can do what they... You see people like David, right, is one of the few people that you see, like, he has this courage. Yeah. Whatever that is thing, you know, we want it. But, but you see all the other people, like even Elijah, he runs into the cave afraid of, you know, of the queen, right? And he's like, there's nobody, just kill me now, right? Yeah. He's literally like suicidal. Yeah. And God's like, nope, you have the ability to do what you need to do, right? Yeah. And I think that's what most men need to get is their courage back, their ability to fight for what they want, and their ability not to kowtow to public opinion and what it might do to you. And that's kind of why I'm doing this video. Is it's like me stepping out in faith and saying, you know what, men, we need to bring this thing back. Yeah. We need to bring this thing back. Yeah. We need to, like, there's a speech that Jim Caviezel gave of, there's a line that evil will not cross and we have to draw this line in the sand. It says, evil will not progress past this point. And you know, that we will stand against it. And that's what God's like. I'll finish with this. God is raising up these men and they're like the most peculiar men. And I know you watch one of them is
Elijah.
Elijah.
I watch him on Instagram.
Instagram, yeah.
I love watching him.
He's this young little flaquillo, you know what I mean? Tiny little dude. And he talks a mile a minute, you know what I mean? One of these days, like, that's our goal. I want to get on his show.
Oh, that would be amazing.
I want to talk to him. You know, and he's not perfect. He doesn't have perfect theology. He's stepping out in faith. You know what I mean? And none of us have perfect theology. But he's willing to step out, and what is he working through is this deliverance ministry. And the deliverance ministry is casting out the demons. And that's what we need to do, is we need to cleanse this country again from all of these gods that came back and are possessing everybody in this country.
Yes.
You know, and we need to cleanse our churches first.
Yes.
Before we go and cleanse the world, we need to cleanse the churches first. The churches are full of these spirits. Yeah. And we need to cleanse our churches first. We need to cleanse our children, our families, and then go out where we are protected, because I can't go out and try and cleanse the world until my house is taken care of, until my church is taken care of, where I can have a base of strength to come back to.
Anchor, a foundation. Yeah.
And that's what's happening right now in our world. And I think that it's a spiritual battle. And I think men like Elijah and all his buddies, I watch a bunch of them, are like the girl Catherine, I forget her name, in California. You know what I mean? And she's just like popping trunk in like parks and casting out demons.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And the crazy thing is you would think, if I went in, like, 'cause I see a lot of preachers, like street preachers. There's this black guy that I follow from, I think he's Canadian.
Oh, okay.
And he gets so many hecklers, and he argues with the hecklers, right? And I don't know what his theology really is. I like seeing him because he's a pretty smart guy, but he doesn't have the power that this girl has, right? And you know what you never see in her little things? Hecklers.
No, and you see
they're
crowds.
like, oh, I'm not gonna go there.
We're out of there.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna get kicked out of this body if I go over there and start heckling her.
Yeah.
So to me, that's just the sign that whatever she's doing is unique and it's different, and it's for a time as this. Yes. You know what I mean? It's like Esther, that there's a time that we were, like, me and you were created for this time for whatever reason.
Chills, Ed.
Yeah,
whole podcast.
We were created for a time as this, and I don't want to be at the end of my life just get in by the skin of my teeth into the kingdom. I want to be like, I want to hear that, well done, the good and faithful servant. Amen. You've been faithful over little, I'll make you ruler over much. Like, that's what I want to hear. Amen. You know, I may not get it, but that's what I'm going to strive for. Yeah. And if it, you know, if something happens, you know what I mean? Like, I'm down. Yeah. Like, I'm ready. You know what I mean? And we need as a country, and men in our country, and I'm specifically talking about men, that we need to get in our closet and we need to spend time with the God, and find out what you're supposed to do. You know, and you got to stop running. We got to stop. I ran for many years thinking that it's financial, that it's you know, whatever. I was going to be a politician. Maybe politician's a good thing. I don't know. I don't know exactly what God wants me to do. I know he wanted me to do this. And everything kept pointing to this. You know what I mean? Videos. So I'm going on videos. You know what I mean? Yeah. Luckily, I don't have a face for radio. You know what I mean? Yes. Even though you might be listening to this on a podcast. We got to put these things out. We got to start putting them out. But that's my rant for today. And I think that's what needs to happen, is these street preachers need to start just casting out demons on the street. Yeah. And in the churches, we need to cleanse our churches. They're all full of these spirits.
Yeah.
They're full of women that are committing abortions, right? Because they have the spirit inside of them, the spirit of Molech. There's a bunch of women and men that are committing sexual sins,
you know what,
immorality.
With the abortion thing, one thing that because I'm talking to more people that are involved in volunteering to help people, and one thing that I want men to do is step up and say something to their woman. One of the reasons I was born, because I was almost aborted, is because my dad wanted me. My dad said, I'll take her.
You're going to make me cry.
I know. And I think that gave my mom extra courage. And knowing, like, okay, I'm not alone. I think that men...
he gave you the protection, and he's like, I got this, girl.
Exactly.
That's why we got to step up, as men.
And we need that.
So she can rest.
And so many men are like, oh, do what you want. When you say, do what you want, that means I don't want it. And I hope you have an abortion. Don't say that. Step up and take that and let your woman know. Even if it's scary, like, you made a baby, let's do this,
Yeah, I had my son very early out of wedlock. It was a girlfriend that I was with, and she was terrified, and I was terrified too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I was in college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't, and I almost went in the military, and then I went into car sales.
Yeah.
But I remember having a conversation with her, and I told her, I said, no matter, it was with her and her parents. And I said, no matter what happens between me and you, I will always be here.
Yeah.
Yes. I will always be here. Whenever you need me, the first bill that I'm going to pay is child support. I sent child support payments before my son was even born. Oh, wow. I was sending, and I set it all up, and I started sending, because I had like already a 3rd-degree black belt in divorce because of my parents.
Oh man, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I know how this works.
Yeah.
So as a man, the worst thing that you can do is not take care of your children.
Yes, 1,000,000%. Step up.
Step up, and you can handle it. I promise you.
It's not easy, but you can do it.
Yeah, and it's the best thing that you'll ever do. What's that country song? Is that where he thought he lost his whole life, right? And then There Goes My Life. I think it's Kenny Chesney.
Yes.
That song's it's gospel right there. You know what I mean? That should be sung at church. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because in the beginning, he thought his life was over by having this child, and then at the end, when the child leaves for college, his life was leaving.
Yes, but that's what society tells you. Society tells you it's over, you're done, and then you hear your parents say the same thing to you, or your partner say the same thing to you, and there's a lot of shame, and there's a lot of blah blah blah. It isn't over. It's the beginning. There's a timeline where it's better. You don't want to get pregnant at 16. You want to be married in 26, for example. But if you get out of the timeline, you got out of the timeline.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And your life isn't over.
No.
It's just different.
It took me years to get over that. Because I was like this good Christian. I was a square. And all this stuff happened, and it was very much an unhideable sin that was exposed.
Ooh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was like, well, my whole calling is gone. Right?
Yeah.
I thought I had ruined my life.
Yes.
And you know how much I love my boy.
You love him so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He's my boy. It's like
we have a picture of him right over here.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I love him to death. Yeah. And it's not his fault.
No.
It's not his fault.
No.
And he's going to be such a blessing to this world.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
He's so smart.
Yes.
It's like and like every time I see him, I light up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, oh man. Like, and sometimes I'll just hug on him, you know, and he's like, Dad, because he's 18 now.
Dad.
Gosh, you know, and I was like, I don't care, you know,
Yeah.
and he's a big old guy,
Yeah.
you know, I don't care. I'll still take him, you know what I mean? Pick him up, carry him around, you know, put him on my shoulders. I don't know. but I love him, you know what I mean? And my life would be, like a whole huge part of my life would be hollow if I didn't have my boy. You know, I'm sure your dad feels the same way.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
He loves you to death. I seen him. You know what I mean? He's mama's girl. Daddy's girl.
Yes.
Daddy's girl. He's your daddy's girl.
Yeah. All of us are. There's 4 of us. He's so good at that.
Yeah. So that's good. You know, and I think that there is a human side to this that we need to come at with compassion.
Yes.
And I don't want to come at this judging.
Yeah.
Because I haven't lived the life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, dude, like I am the chief of all sinners, like Paul. You know, the things that I know I shouldn't do, I do. And the things that I should do, I don't do.
Yeah.
But by the grace of God, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And my calling is not gone.
Yes.
I still have the ability to do what God has called me to. And I'm not going to just let it go by the wayside. I'm going to fight through it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, you know, men have to have courage.
Yes.
You know, courage to take on that mountain and not say that mountain's too big for me. You know, you can do it. You can do it through God's strength and through the trusting of His calling and His movement. Yeah. You could do it. Mm-hmm. You know, God wants courage, especially from men.
Yes.
You can do it. And the women, you know what? Like my mom, she raised 3 boys. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And she did it. You know, waiting tables and doing all this stuff. You don't have to go sell your body. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, like, you're in America. Yeah. You're in freaking America. Yes. Like, there's so much that can provide for you as a woman. Yes. But young girls that are not married, you are the gateway to sex. Mm-hmm. You have the keys to sex. Men know this. Yes. Now, granted, if you've been taken advantage of, that's an exception. Different. Yes. But that's different. But if you're in normal relationships, you have the key. Mm-hmm. Don't sell that key for just a night. Yes. Give your key to your forever guy. I promise you he will value it if you find the right guy. Yeah. And if he doesn't, he's not the right guy. Yeah. Don't sell your key to that guy. No. Find a guy that's done that. Yeah. That he's found his calling. Yeah. Right? Or at least seeking God for it. Yeah. Like, and tell him. You know how many things wives tell their husbands or their boyfriends? And the guy's like, okay. I'll do anything. You know what I mean? He's like, just as long as she'll, you know, let me. You know, guys are easy. Yeah. You know what I mean? He'd be like, oh, I guess I got to go find out. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. 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 Girls have power over guys. You know what I mean? Yeah. Be Esther. Yeah. Call out his courage. Yeah. You know, call out his courage to be who he's supposed to be. Yeah. So that's it for today, guys. What a podcast. Yeah. We weren't expecting going down that road. Oh, man. It was a good one. Yeah. But if you would, please comment, share, like, all that stuff. Subscribe, follow. Yeah. Leave comments. Tell us your thoughts on all of this. Yeah. Yeah. And if you need any maybe counseling or something like that about some of this, you know, give us a call or give us a message or the DM or something like that. Slide into the DMs. All right. That's almost got a bad connotation. It 1,000,000% does. All right, guys. God bless. Bye-bye. Bye.